You want to get into it?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Half Serious F1. My name is Matt.
My name is Rick.
We're going to need some more volume on that, buddy.
My name is Rick.
That's how you project. All right, guys. We are Half Serious F1, and hopefully you are too. We're an F1 podcast recording live here at the wonderful, famous Zito's Deli in San Antonio, Texas, home of the Serious Sandwich.
Home of the beautiful toasted. I don't know if that's in their actual description, but it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I thought you were going to say the beautiful Brad.
Oh.
Brad is also beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you to Brad. Thank you to Zito's for having us. We cannot be more excited to be here. It's an absolute dream come true. We're coming to you 2 races into the season now. We've just finished the Chinese Grand Prix. It's been absolutely electric this 2025. Lot of wild stuff going on, from Ferrari doing what Ferrari does to McLaren apparently doing what McLaren does. We all thought that that's what they did until now, which is win races, or rather the other way around. We thought they were supposed to win races, and that didn't start happening till mid last season. So it's nice to see them in solid form, staying strong.
Yeah.
We just finished with a Oscar Piastri victory in China, which is something that I personally have been waiting for a while. I know he's had a few last season. I think this is maybe his 3rd or 4th
I believe
P1,
it's 4th.
his 4th P1. And so that's very, very exciting to see. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk about where we came from in the 2024 season and what we're doing now. We ended with a Max Verstappen driver championship, 4th in a row, but adversely with a McLaren constructors championship, which you could blame on Checo Perez. You should have expected a Red Bull constructors championship,
Yeah.
but the dominance between both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri is hard to deny. They've been racing together now for a handful of years, and it's been really, really exciting to see those two guys out on the track working together between the team orders last year, and just the sheer pace this year between the two of them has just been really, really exciting to see. And as somebody who's not personally a huge McLaren fan, I have to say they're winning my hearts. Zoe,
Yeah.
my girlfriend,
I mean,
recently.
They're super young, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the exact age.
I mean, they're both younger than us.
They're both. That's for sure.
I think most of the grid is younger than us now, except for Hamilton and Alonso.
Oh, for sure, Alonso.
Yes.
I hope so. Anyways, sorry I threw you off there.
Oh no! I was gonna make a joke about how my girlfriend bought me an F1 Lego set the other day, and she didn't know what team I supported. So she said, "What's your favorite F1 team?" And I was like, "She's buying me a Lego set. I know it." So I said Haas in general, because I like an underdog. I like an American team, and I love Gunther Steiner, who is unfortunately no longer with Haas, but Ayo Komatsu's doing his thing as well. I was a big Kevin Magnussen fan. Unfortunately, he's no longer with the team anymore. We're down to Ollie Behrman, who put up a brilliant performance last year at Jeddah, driving for Ferrari when Carlos Sainz had to get his appendix removed.
And Esteban
Ocon, who is a very, very talented driver. I would tend to say underrated quite often. He's a real fighter. He was driving for Williams last year, I believe.
I don't remember much of last year. I think that's when we first started talking about F1, and I know that I did see some races last year, but far in between.
Yeah, no, I watched all the races last year, but I got to tell you, I've slept since then. Ocon was with Alpine, I believe, because that was the big rivalry between him and Pierre Gasly, who grew up, I mean, miles away from each other, racing, both Frenchmen, both racing for the French national team, so to speak. So to see him away from Alpine now and at Haas, I want to see how that rivalry sort of develops between him and Ollie Behrman. Esteban, a more experienced driver, but Ollie, a very, very talented young driver. So I'm super, super excited to see what comes from him.
And he's a rookie.
Yeah, he's a rookie this year, along with, let's call out the other rookies too. We've got Kimi Antonelli over at Mercedes,
feels like he's not really a rookie because you heard about him in like F2 before he even got to F1.
Well, I mean, all these guys raced against each other in F2, at least for the most part. I know Ollie and Isaac Hadjar and Kimi Antonelli were all racing on the same circuits. So seeing Kimi take this Mercedes spot, I think a lot of people were really skeptical.
Yeah.
Not so much skeptical about Kimi Antonelli, but skeptical. I mean, I'll say a lot of people is me. Kimi, not skeptical about the driver, but skeptical about the hype of the driver.
Yeah,
you've got
that's usually what happens.
Like a 17-year-old kid. How old is he? 17, I think. I can't
do the math. 2006.
He's 19. Oh
19.
God, math takes a lot longer than I thought it used to. So we got a 19-year-old kid out there piloting a spaceship. You know, an absolute rocket, one of the Silver Arrows, right behind George Russell, who has only just recently, in the last year,
stepped up.
Yeah, really stepped up, got into grips with things, and really kind of salvaged a Mercedes, not a championship by any means, but at least a good run. Really salvaged a Mercedes season, despite some of Lewis Hamilton's relatively lackluster performances last year. Outside of Silverstone, I can't really think of a single Hamilton performance last year that stands out.
Yeah.
By any means. And so to see George Russell take the reins over at Mercedes, to have the confidence from Toto Wolff to give him that spot, and not to say that Toto really had many other options other than a George Russell.
And he's podiumed the last two big races.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in 2025, and we'll recap a little bit of Australia. We'll recap a little bit of China for you guys. I mean, we're already way outside the outline, so we can probably reel it back in a little bit.
I think we could do that.
But to see Kimi Antonelli really take a spot over at Mercedes is going to be super exciting. So yeah, let's reel it back in a little bit. Let's talk somewhat about our format, what we're trying to get into with this podcast, and why we're doing it. The why is always the most important for me, I think, and I hope for the viewer as well. Rick, why do you want to do this podcast?
I think my biggest thing is really it's a way to really get into the races. I mean, I understand the entertainment part of it, but I really want to get down and knowing who the drivers are, and I think this is a pretty good way. Because we almost have to do our homework if we're going to do these right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a good way to do it. And I mean, obviously, you have 2-3 years looking at the races.
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing the races, and I've had some stints, mostly Netflix Drive to Survive, like a lot of people. And I really just want to get to know who these drivers are, and I think this is a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I can really only echo your sentiments. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, it's a little bit of amateur hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's
we're here to learn. We're here to have fun. Most importantly,
we almost went with full serious podcast.
Yeah, no, there's a reason it's half serious for
serious.
Sure. I can't agree more with what you said about doing this podcast. Actually just makes the races more fun.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah.
It's having to take notes and do the research and really, really pay attention to what's going on in the races.
Yeah.
I mean, I must have watched Australia 2-3 times over, and then China, I mean, just happened. So, I mean, twice now, but I mean, and the idea of actually taking notes during the race is actually a lot of fun. It's weird how it kind of activates that brain, that part of my brain, and makes everything just a little bit more interesting, even at 2 a.m. watching the Chinese Grand Prix.
I can't believe you did the 2 a.m. thing.
Yeah.
I think I started watching it at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I had, I forgot what I ended up doing, but I had to step away. And then I was having problems with it, like streaming in a way where I was watching it on my phone, but whenever I would watch it on the TV, it would like start back over.
Oh no.
And then there was a time when I was trying to skip it forward to be where I was at.
Mhm.
And then it went all the way to the end. I'm like, no, I can't see what's happening yet. And it was a mess. But
Yeah.
eventually got it. And it was a great race. I thought it was for, I would say what I'm used to. I would say it was a bit boring, but the strategy part of it obviously was the more entertainment part with
Mhm.
people, you know, and we're talking about the Chinese Grand Prix.
Yeah, Chinese Grand Prix.
With people doing the one stop.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, but
Yeah, I mean that we can have that strategy discussion too. Let's kind of again reel it back a little bit and talk about our format somewhat. So the way we want to do this is we're recording today on a Tuesday, and Grand Prix weekends tend to start on Thursdays, ending on Sundays. So we can talk a little bit about the race format as well, but we're not going to go into that right now. We're just going to focus on our podcasting format and what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
So we're recording on a Tuesday, now 2 days after the Grand Prix itself, and 2 days away from the next Grand Prix starting in Japan. So what we want to do is we want to do a little bit of recap for you guys, what we took from the race, what our perspective was, again, as amateurs, so take it with a grain of salt. But also what we're looking forward to in the next race. Again, next race is going to be Suzuka in Japan, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for that. It's one of the more enthralling, thrilling tracks on the race calendar. So that's going to be very, very exciting. I just watched Max Verstappen's hot lap from it the other just before we came over here.
From last year, or
yeah. It was his qualifying lap from, I believe it was last year. It could have been the year before. I can't remember if Japan was on. Japan was on the calendar last year. I think it was from last year. It was his qualifying hot lap, and it was just monstrous, man. It's just a very fun track. It must feel like you're riding a very, very long roller coaster for 57 laps or 53, I think.
I mean, if you're
Suzuka
watching
is.
him by himself on a track,
So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And that's kind of what we're going to do here. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened last week, a little bit about what we think might happen next week. And in between, we're going to try and do some deep dives. We're going to really try and find some of the more interesting aspects of the season, of the teams,
of the tracks,
of Formula One as an entity, of FIA as an organization, some of the history behind it all, and that way we can all come together with a little bit more background, knowledge, history, passion for the things that we're talking about. And I think it just makes it a lot more fun. Ideally, what I'd like to do is I'd love to build up a community with this podcast. We could start a fantasy league. We could start group chats and really get the back and forth going. That is one of the interesting things about being a Formula One fan, and actually what brought us here to Zito's, is that even though there's a lot of Drive to Survive out there, recognition between Formula One fans is relatively few and far in between. You know, there's not a local sports bar in most places that's airing all the races, or that's, you know, there's not the closest thing to a team sports bar that we found is Zito's Sub Shop. I'm not sure if they can't see it on the walls behind us right now, but this place is covered in Ferrari photos and posters and memorabilia all about Formula One and Ferrari. There's a map over there of Circuit of the Americas that is just
Texas circuit.
Yeah, up there in Austin, which is, just beyond cool. So again, we're really excited to be in this environment, in this space, and hopefully fostering a little bit of community and passion for the fandom that is Formula One, both in San Antonio and Texas, and then just nationally or globally, really. I mean, who knows how big this podcast could get. I want Zito's etched on the moon by the time we're done.
Yeah, or on a car.
Or on a car. Yeah, I'll take that. All right. So with that, do we want to get right into Australia?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So Australia for Piastri fans was heartbreaking, without a doubt. That I believe it was I have it written here in my notes. Lap 44. 44. Norris and Piastri both go wide and leave a gap for Verstappen, who holds the racing line. So, we'll start from the beginning because there was craziness going on from the beginning. But that peak moment of Norris and Piastri going wide into the gravel, Piastri crossing the track, slipping, doing a full 180, and then going off into the grass.
And
44 laps into a McLaren sandwich.
Yeah.
Of Verstappen. I think I can't recall, but I think Piastri may have actually been in second when that happened.
When it happened, that's
when that happened. So we were looking at a McLaren 1-2, and then all hopes were dashed when that rain started to slick that track back up.
Yeah.
And everybody was still out on hards, I believe. And those two guys went wide, and Verstappen took the lead, sending Norris back to second place. And Piastri, with one of the most valiant recovery efforts I've seen a driver make. It was like watching the little engine that could. It was 3 minutes of Oscar Piastri spinning his wheels until he slowly gained traction and got back out on the track. I was certain it was a DNF, Oscar Piastri, 0 points, not going to happen. Instead, where did he actually end up?
I think the only thing he could have done was get outside and push the car.
Yeah. And so with all that happening, Oscar Piastri actually ended up in 9th place, gaining 2 points for McLaren, which is crazy. So that was a beautiful moment for me to think about the kind of dedication that these guys have, or at least some of them do. And I just want to throw props out to Oscar for pulling that off, just for getting back out on the track and getting back into the points is a Herculean effort. So that's great for him. But I mean, the real culprit of all of this is the rain. The rain killed everybody.
The rain. I mean, there was not that much racing going on through the rain. I mean, it was pretty much Ferrari on ice. Yeah. Or like going to watch a show. Yeah. Or not Ferrari, F1 on ice. Yeah. Because, I mean, they were...
Oh, it was everybody.
They were tiptoeing around.
It was everybody. Well, yeah, I mean, let's start with poor Isaac Hadjar.
Oh.
Isaac Hadjar on the formation lap. Not even racing yet. Yeah. No green flag. The red lights are still on.
That's hard.
And it's a full spin. I think he was maybe turn 3? He was out.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you watched the broadcast or caught the news afterwards, there was that beautiful moment. And again, what we love about sports is those beautiful moments. It's not always about the technical skill or the victories, or it's just the one of the best moments of that weekend was between Isaac Hadjar and Anthony Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton's father, who, while Hadjar is completely distraught, he's just screwed up.
Down.
His third turn on his first race before the race even begins as a rookie. I mean, that can't feel good.
Well, he's only got up from here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a lot of what Anthony Hamilton was able to give to him.
Instill,
Look, you don't think I've seen Lewis mess a few things up, And so to be able to go over there, put his arm around him, be a father figure to a kid he probably barely even knows, and say, look, keep your chin up. You're a high performance athlete. mistakes happen, keep moving forward. I think that's an incredible moment, and probably will be something that Isaac Hadjar remembers for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and he's definitely learned from that, and I think he's gonna do some good stuff, or at least that's the hope. Anyway.
Yeah, where did he end up in China? I can't quite remember.
Well, it was both of them together, so I know that they.
Yeah, he ended up in P11, which is a massive improvement. From a DNF on the formation lap. So let's talk about a few more DNFs, which was Gabriel Bortoleto, Carlos Sainz, and Jack Doohan, all within the first 2-3 laps, I believe.
And then Alonso.
And then Fernando Alonso, DNF'd on 32 laps.
Yeah.
So we also had Liam Lawson DNF. On lap 46, I forgot he had that bad spin out,
which is another sad story for a lot of people.
Let's talk about Liam Lawson. Do you want to talk about Liam Lawson?
Let's talk about Liam Lawson.
I kind of don't want to talk about Liam Lawson.
I think there's enough talk.
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy.
We'll add just a little bit.
I think we need to give him a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Just as a fandom, it cannot be easy being a Red Bull number 2. I think that's probably the worst position you can have.
Well, all eyes are going to be on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I heard something about 12 races is a good amount of races to see a racer see what he's going to do.
Well, I mean, I think it's about 2. As much that Logan Sargent had.
Yeah.
The American driver whose spot Liam Lawson took last year on Racing Bulls.
Yeah. So we're at 2 now. I think we have to give him a few more races, at least 10. So that would make it 12. If you include the sprint, I guess he's race 3. Yeah.
And I'm not sure how you want to handle that detail. I do have to correct myself. It wasn't Logan Sargent that Liam Lawson replaced. Logan Sargent was replaced by Gabriel Bortoleto at Williams. No, excuse me. Again, he was replaced by Franco Colapinto at Williams, who was unfortunately not on the grid. I think a lot of people thought we were going to see him on the grid this year after a pretty solid performance last year, recovering from Logan Sargent. It was Liam Lawson who took Danny Ricciardo's spot after Singapore last year. And so I think he's only had 9 races maybe total in a car. He's not a full season rookie, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put him in that category, but it's definitely his first season in a Red Bull. We know now, based off of the race results, that a Red Bull and a Racing Bull are not the same.
Not the same. And I think you would know that with Yuki.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda's performance. I mean, that's the big challenge with the Liam Lawson conversation.
Yeah.
Is it's hard to talk about Liam Lawson without also talking about Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah.
Because I think along with thousands of other F1 fans, really, really expected Yuki Tsunoda to end up in that second Red Bull spot. And to be honest with you, I couldn't be happier that he's not in that position, because I don't think you end up in a scenario as good as a driver as Yuki is, where he's still competing in that Red Bull. I think there's something with that seat, whether it's the way the team is organized, whether it's the simple car setup, the design of the car itself. That's what I've heard, is that the design of the car itself is singular to a Max Verstappen, and I don't know how that's possible.
Both cars?
Exactly. I mean, there's enough modification that you can make between the two.
But they each have their engineer, though. Don't
they each have their own engineers, but that's racing engineers. I mean, those guys help you with the setup and track your data and all that stuff, give you team calls and commands. But I mean, it's not like they have a completely different car.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit strange the way that it always seems to be that person in that second seat is screwed one way or another. So I'm thrilled that it's not Yuki, because I'm a big Yuki fan.
Yeah.
And I like to see him doing well. And if that's in a Racing Bull or in a Red Bull, it doesn't really matter to me. But I think he's got better chance in the Racing Bull.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, so tough break for Liam, honestly. And I think you're right. I hope they at least give him the 9 races, because I was reading news headlines just the other day that was like Christian Horner responds to critics saying, Liam Lawson should be dropped by the Japanese Grand Prix. And I'm like, you're going to drop a driver?
If they did that, then they couldn't change again, right? Or something like that.
I'm not totally sure what the restriction would be.
I heard
on that.
something like that if they did change, that driver would have to be in there for the rest of the season.
I could believe that. Yeah, I don't know what the restrictions are. That's actually something that's worth looking into.
Yeah,
I'm gonna set my mic down real quick.
Yeah, I obviously there's a lot of stuff out on social media about Liam and what they should do, and a lot of it is drama.
Well, that's what F1 is. It's drama.
Yeah, it's drama. So it fits right into the whole story of that, and man, it would really suck to be him right now.
Yeah, I mean that's really all we can get out of this conversation right now. Is it sucks to be you, Liam, and we're so sorry, man. I think you've been given a raw deal.
It sucks, and if I was going to be getting all that heat, but I'm also sitting in a Red Bull car.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I don't know.
Laugh all the way to the bank.
Yeah,
dude.
I'll
laugh
take it.
all the way to the bank. No problem.
So I'm not going to feel that sorry, but yeah.
I'm definitely not going to talk shit for another 7 Grands Prix.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how it goes. Lance Stroll, I really want to talk shit about, but he's doing surprisingly well. And I'm going to leave that at that for right now, because let's wait a little bit of time and see how that goes. But you know what? I gotta give it to him. I'm a little bit impressed with his performance so far. He's a driver. He's a driver. He's an F1 driver. All right. So Australia, we ended up with Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, George Russell podium. I cannot tell you how happy I was to not have to sit through the Dutch national anthem once again. And the more we can avoid that, the better. George Russell really, I think, is a highlight of these last 2 Grands Prix, between Melbourne and Shanghai, ending up on the 3rd spot podium for both races is really impressive.
Yeah.
And then let alone, now we can get back to the Kimi Antonelli conversation. For him to end up in 4th place on his first Grand Prix that's pretty damn impressive. I don't have the world of F1 statistics at my fingertips necessarily
on what that means,
but I'm not sure how many people have accomplished that or better. I'm sure there's got to be a couple standout stories. I mean, there's Nelson Piquet and Ayrton Senna. Somebody probably won their first. Michael Schumacher. I don't actually know the data on that, so I'm going to look that up. Best first starts. But for a 19-year-old kid, again, a 19-year-old kid who's been extremely hyped, still to end up in 4th place, I think you gotta give that man a round of applause. Yeah. And I don't know if is he bean shot of the week?
Bean shot of the week.
Bean shot.
I wish we had the beans.
Well, I know we need our beans. We gotta talk to Brad about that.
Talk to Brad.
When you come to Zito's, you will find out that when you order a sandwich, that's not a serious sandwich. I don't think you get it with a serious sandwich.
You get a pickle with the
serious. You get a pickle with the serious sandwich. You'll get a little cup of beans, and we like to call it a bean shot. And so that's, I think,
I wonder what the history is behind
I don't know. We got to get Brad on this podcast ASAP, because I've got Formula One questions for him, but I've got bean questions for him too.
And we don't have the sauce on the table. We're gonna have
do we not? Yeah.
We're gonna have to ask about what's inside the sauce, and maybe we'll get a.
I don't know if he'll tell us. He'll tell us literally anything. I don't know if he'll tell us what's in the sauce. Yeah. It's probably just slap your mama. I don't know what it is. Sorry, Brad, if we let the secret out. All right. So Australia was great. I think I was really happy with it, despite all of the craziness, despite the Ferrari strategy issues. So what it was, it was lap 42 we established was that big wide moment with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris going in the gravel. Verstappen takes the lead. And the reason he spun out is because that track was getting more and more wet by the moment. I think I have the actual radio call from Leclerc's engineer, not the first one, which is hilarious. The first one where he says, Leclerc calls in. He says, is there a leakage? The engineer says, a leakage of what? Leclerc, I have a seat full of water, like full of water. Engineer, must be the water.
Must be the water.
So that one's going down in words of wisdom forever. Yeah.
That's got to be a shirt.
Yeah. Coming soon. Check the merch store. Must be the water.
Must be the water.
So I on lap 42, I also have the note that Leclerc's engineer calls in and says class 3 rain for 2 laps expected in 3 laps. And so within 2 laps, class 3 rain starts to begin. If you don't know, they rank classes of rain by severity. So I believe it's class 3 is the weakest and class 1 is the heaviest. So you're going from like light sprinkle to downpour.
Okay.
I could be wrong about the way that's organized, but I mean that is one of the other more interesting aspects of Ferrari that we could dig into. Is the meteorology that goes into.
Do they?
Ferrari?
They all have their own.
A lot of them do, yeah. I'm not. I wouldn't guarantee. I can't guarantee that every single team has their own. Yeah. There might be some smaller teams that can't quite manage their own meteorology setups and probably purchase that data from somebody. The major teams definitely have their own weather stations, their own.
I mean, they're minute by minute, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. Class 3 rain in 2 laps is what they were able to. I mean, that's a 3-minute prediction. That's me think it's going to rain in exactly 3 minutes, exactly where you're at. That's pretty damn good in terms of weather prediction. Yeah, because even
different parts of the course or the circuit were rain and then there was no rain.
Yeah, sometimes it's more wet, sometimes it's less. And it's kind of crazy because it definitely, the rain started early on in the race, well before the formation lap, which is how we ended up with so many DNFs. People
right at the beginning.
Really screwing the pooch right at the beginning. And then the track dried over the progression of the race. And then it was that last 10 laps where that rain came back. You had your big spin out with Piastri and Norris. Verstappen takes the lead and then goes into the pits. He stayed out. Verstappen stayed out for a little while.
Norris went.
The McLarens went into the pits as soon as they could. Piastri took a little while longer. Ferrari stayed out. I think Albon stayed out too. And so that's the big Ferrari strategy debacle of the race. They weren't the only ones to make that call to stay out on slicks. Maybe the rain's going to clear up. Maybe it's not going to be so bad. They did call class 3. Again, I don't think class 3 is very significant in terms of wet weather. It's not race stop worthy by any means. And so I guess Ferrari didn't think that it was necessary to go on to the intermediates and that it just wasn't going to be bad enough until 2-3 laps later they're getting passed by everybody because they can't keep control of their cars. I think there was even a Hamilton radio call where he's like, I'm all over the place in this thing. Yep. And so they both pit, lose their spots, and then end up in, 9th and 10th? 8th and 10th, respectively, for Ferrari, Leclerc in 8th and Hamilton in 10th, which is not not what we expect from Ferrari. But if you've been a Ferrari fan for any amount of time, that strategy is exactly what you expect. Yeah. So it's a sad thing to be a Ferrari fan sometimes, and but an important thing to do. So if you are a Ferrari fan, I'm sure they thank you and would like more of your money.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's got to be the most purchased merged.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of
F1.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. McLaren's getting up there and Red Bull now too, but
yeah, but their color is just not right. Yeah. I couldn't. I wouldn't. It would be hard to be a McLaren fan.
You don't look good in papaya.
No, I couldn't do it. Honestly, red's not even.
Yeah.
I'm more. I like the Mercedes. Obviously, the Red Bull's kind of
Yeah.
cool that it has this split colors.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a branding discussion for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, we could.
All right, do you want to go straight out into China, or is there anything else that you want to talk about from Australia?
No, I think we can go into China. I think we're far away from Australia that we could probably.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the summary of Australia was a little bit disappointing if you're a Ferrari fan,
Or even, I mean, I would say even a race fan because there wasn't that much racing until the end.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean that last 10 laps was dynamo, but up until then, I gotta say it was a bit of a snooze fest. So, let's move on to China, which was a glimmer of hope for the Lewis Hamilton fans out there, and
the Ferrari fans.
For the Ferrari fans, we had Lewis Hamilton on pole for the sprint qualifying, and then in first place podium, winning the sprint. That
with a huge gap.
Very next day, huge gap. It was, 6 seconds. Oscar Piastri was behind him.
It's kind of, obviously they mess with the car all the time, before and after races.
Yeah.
Did he not have that issue during the sprint?
I mean, it's an interesting question. They obviously changed the setups between sprint and Grand Prix. There's no pit stop.
So they got to set that up different. The suspension for the tires not to wear as much.
There's no need to change to a different tire. So I'm sure we could do a pretty deep dive into the differences between car setups for sprints and Grand Prix weekends. I'm not sure I have all the details right now to be able to go into that. But that would be a really interesting look. But behind him, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. So
what? Oh yeah, it was Hamilton, Piastri, and Verstappen. I thought it was. Do I have it wrong?
No, for the sprint. For the sprint, it was Hamilton, Verstappen, and Piastri. Yeah. And then for the actual Grand Prix final results, it was Piastri, Norris. And then Russell. So it's. I don't think Verstappen podiumed in everything but the actual Chinese Grand Prix. So he's still maintaining his points.
He's in second, right?
I believe so, yeah. In the Drivers' Championship. It should be Norris, Verstappen, and then I think Russell right behind him because Piastri had the DNF in Australia. Or no, he did not have a DNF, but he was just low enough in the points that I don't think it carried over. He only ended up with 2 points in Australia. So Chinese sprint result was somewhat misleading, I think, from what we figured was actually going to happen. And then we go to the actual Grand Prix and talk about devastating. Again, if you're an F1 fan or a Ferrari fan, if you're a McLaren fan, incredible job by Oscar Piastri. I thought he was wonderful.
Ran away with it
all race long. And I mean, the two of them, again, really, Lando and Oscar working together, I thought was just awesome, really. I mean, I think I even wrote down at some point that they reminded me of like an assassin hit squad. Just the two of them they just two really, really good drivers and two really, really good cars.
Yeah.
And that's something that no other team has had up until this point. They've had one good driver and two great cars, or one car's not great and the other is. I don't know what it is, but the dynamic duo that is now Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the best car is something that is really kind of a game changer. I don't know when the last time we saw something like that in Formula One was, outside of
Ricardo and Verstappen. No.
I wouldn't give him that. I wouldn't give him that. I was gonna say like Hamilton and Bottas, or Hamilton and Raikkonen, but that was years ago. Oh no, not Raikkonen. Nico Rosberg, years and years ago. Back when Hamilton was still winning championships.
Could they radio each other?
The drivers between the cars? No, I think they only talk to their engineers. As far as I know, now when they talk, the whole garage hears it, but I don't think they can hear each other's radio calls, which would be interesting.
It would be interesting to hear what they're if they were to communicate. Yeah, because I thought I heard like Norris say something to Piastri.
I think we would hear a lot more of it if they could.
Well, it's
I know
funny.
they can in NASCAR. Or at least they
It's
could.
funny because you can hear the broadcasters. They can hear everybody's radio, but they only broadcast some of the ones that they want to.
Yeah, the more interesting
The more
ones,
interesting,
for sure.
or the if there's drama or something happening.
Or it's Yuki just being bleeped out with a bunch of expletives.
Because you heard the Hamilton Leclerc thing before you heard it on the radio of them switching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when they did the team orders to switch Hamilton and Leclerc, there was that you could definitely hear the conversation between
The broadcasters.
the broadcasters, and then eventually the actual team orders that came in themselves. And another thing that's interesting too, I don't know if you've ever on the F1 TV app when you're watching it, if you go to the driver that you want to follow, you actually hear all of their radio calls.
Ah.
So if you're following just one driver and you've got the audio set to that window, then you're hearing all of the calls between both the driver and the engineer. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. If you're just a singular fan of a driver, often that's a great way to watch a race, especially if you got the multiple windows set up and you can watch the race appear and the live timing and then your driver.
That makes more sense because I know that you can get like transcriptions from comms.
Yeah.
So that's probably how they do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and the better journalists will go through and dig in through all of that stuff. And I imagine the larger sports news outfits will probably have a person dedicated to a specific driver following all of the calls. So all in all, Chinese Grand Prix, I really liked it. I like that track a lot. You get those really, really wild 360 turns with the weird, out of pocket left turn that turns into a button hook, and then you get the crazy, crazy long straights on the back ends.
The longest straight of the is it of the year?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it's one of the longest straights I know of. I can't think of another track that has a longer straight off the top of my head. And there's two of them, which is incredible. And that's really all to say that you shouldn't design a racetrack to be a racetrack. You should design it based off of a Chinese character. And I think it's what the Chinese symbol for ascension or something like that.
Oh, is that what it was?
Literally, the whole track is designed off of a singular Chinese character. And they were like, that's what the track layout's going to look like. And they built a track around it. And that's why you have those weird sort of 360 degree turns that you don't see in any other track.
Knowing that, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, in that first 360 that you take going right, it's that right hand big sweeping turn. There's like a 10-meter decline in elevation. It's a lot like that. Is it Eau Rouge, that one hairpin in Monaco? I can't remember the name of the actual turn. That's like a level of F1 expert that I haven't reached yet, is just calling turns by names.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that on a podcast or on a broadcast, I'm like, well, you guys are pretty cool. So
yeah.
we'll get there.
I'm still at the numbers.
Yeah. I don't even know what the numbers are.
Really? Yeah. During the race, I started getting, that's turn 12 or turn 10.
Eventually you do pick it up for sure. And
because that's the only way to really kind of stay not only engaged, but knowing where everybody is at. Oh, well, I told you that I watched my first race this year just following the dots.
Yeah. You didn't have the F1 TV login.
So
yet.
I was following the dots, and that helped me because you can see
this guy's
number.
looking at dots for an hour and a half go around the track like you're watching your friends play Mario Kart without you.
That's exactly what it looked like. It was the Mario Kart map.
Yeah,
you know how
absolutely.
you have a little map?
Uh-huh.
That's what it was.
Oh, dude, Mario Kart live stream. We'll have to do one of those one day.
Yeah,
between the two of us, if you want to get your ass whooped.
Nah, that's not gonna happen because that's the only video game that I've probably played in the last 10 years.
Okay, all right. I want to see it now. I didn't realize you were a real racer.
Yeah. It's that and 007.
Oh, shit. GoldenEye?
GoldenEye.
Okay, yeah, we got to get a Nintendo 64 up here. That's coming soon. You guys stay tuned for that. Well, actually, I raced F1 24. I actually downloaded F1 24 on my Xbox so I could get an idea of what the Chinese track was like to drive around. And obviously, my little racing wheel strapped to an IKEA table is not a 1-to-1 comparison for what it's like to be in an F1 car. But what I will say is that's one hell of a long turn to have to keep that wheel in the right position. You keep your tire at the right angle and make that full 360 turn and then duck back out into that left hand so quickly it's pretty challenging. I mean, it's challenging, but it's incredibly fun to do that stuff because there's no other track that I can think of. I think maybe in Spa you get like a half circle that kind of replicates that same feeling. Maybe 270
So you're saying
degrees.
if like they happen to drop Liam Lawson, you could probably fill in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody has to.
Yeah.
I'd have to lose a little bit of weight first and do some of those like neck exercises that they do for the G-force. I could probably stand to do some of those anyways, to be honest. Let's give him 7 more races, Rick, and then I'll take his spot. I've got 7 weeks to prepare.
Yeah. So overall, I'm a newbie, so I would say it was a good race. It wasn't super exciting for me all the way around. Obviously, there's the strategic part of it, which was cool. I think that that's the part that had me like, oh shit, okay. I think George Russell was the first one to talk about staying out.
Yeah. Well, he famously, so this ties into the disqualification, and I'm going to take a long walk to get there.
Okay.
It was in, I want to say
Spa?
Was it Spa last year that he did his one stop? Yeah, so George Russell's one-stop race last year in Spa was one of the cooler one-stop performances to see because nobody thought that they were going to do it. He was running the hard tires really well, and he calls in. He goes, I think we're going to do a one-stop. And he pulls it off and wins the race and then is disqualified for being half a kilogram underweight. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, because that's exactly what happened with Charles Leclerc.
Yep.
Charles Leclerc went for the one stop, was found half a kilogram underweight, and disqualified.
Which is so strange because they should just weigh the car and not the tires with on the car.
I agree with you about that. There's a little bit of discrepancy from what I've read in the FIA regulations. They give them they can give them new tires to weigh, new dry tires to weigh with the car, but he was low on
raced on.
But he was low on fuel.
Oh,
apparently.
that
so when they drain the fuel and then weigh the car, that was when he was found to be half a kilogram.
Yeah,
overweight.
I guess I don't even know the exact.
We can go through that process
we'll have to
too.
go down that.
Mean, when we, I'm sure there will be more Ferrari disqualifications to come in the season, so we can talk about that, the weighing and disqualification process, because we also have to talk about Lewis Hamilton's disqualification, which again is, you're talking about the peak team, the pinnacle #1 racing team that everybody has always dreamed of being a part of. Everybody wants to be in red, and they can't figure out their tire strategy. They can't figure out how to keep Hamilton from wearing the the plank down too much. I mean, what is? I don't know what it is with these guys, and it's so hard to look at them and to still talk about how Ferrari is just this incredible team, and you've got Lewis Hamilton giving up a potential 8th championship with Mercedes, which, let's be honest, was not going to happen either.
No.
But he wants that 8th championship with Ferrari, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know how you can look anybody in the eyes and say Ferrari's really got it this year. They're really going to have a chance this year. Because 2 weeks ago I would have said that. But now, how can I?
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
So, I mean, disqualification for him.
That's not a good start.
Yeah, and then disqualification of Pierre Gasly as well. He was also found underweight. So we can do a little bit of compare and contrast with the two of them at some point and see where it really messed up. I'd love to do a deep dive just on that George Russell one-stop disqualification compared to Charles Leclerc's one-stop disqualification this race, and see where the real danger lies in that strategy, and whether or not is it really an effective strategy if you end up disqualified afterwards?
And did they weigh him without his wing? No.
Yeah. I think they put on a new wing.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they put on a new wing.
Yeah, so that was the other incredible part of that race. And interesting, there was a similarity too from Australia when I was looking back at it. Charles Leclerc makes a pass on Hamilton and just taps his very front wing, but the wing stays on.
Yeah.
And then so when Hamilton is passing Leclerc this time, or rather Leclerc's passing Hamilton, hits his front
tire.
Or back left tire, I think, with his front. I don't know, there's one of them. Hits the tire with his wing, and just that very tip of his wing just goes clean off, and was dragging a little bit depending on where he was in the turn and how the downforce.
They were talking about that, about the downforce and how it possibly could have helped him because the flex in it without having that top or that outer piece to kind of hold it structurally parallel or whatever, however it works. I mean, I'm not a engineer, so I don't know exactly.
You're not an aeronautic engineer?
No, but they talked about how that could have possibly helped them.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously helped them enough that they gave them team orders for Charles Leclerc to take over his spot. And to go chase after George Russell. We are recording in a restaurant, and sometimes we get looky loose. So sorry for the distraction. Also, we're next to an airport, and there's an ice machine. So if you're getting any of this, we're working on the audio. We're working on the setup. Please bear with us.
We'll release a ASMR version,
the deli shop ASMR,
and then the video version.
All right, I think honestly that's all I can talk about with the Chinese Grand Prix. That's about all the time that we're gonna have anyways.
Yeah.
I can keep talking for another hour. Will you listen? That's a different story.
Yeah, probably.
So final notes. I cannot be more upset about the disqualification. Yuki dropping down to P16 after that was pretty heartbreaking. I thought he was doing incredible. Again, Lance Stroll's kind of surprising, and a big show out from Haas in the Chinese Grand Prix with Esteban Ocon taking 5th and the young Ollie Behrman taking 8th. So again, a great overall race. Kimi Antonelli still in 6th. I mean, he's claiming points like nobody's business for a rookie. So that's really, really cool to see, and I can't wait to see more of it. We've got Japan coming up. We will be watching all of it, qualifying 2, qualifying, or practice 1, practice 2, and qualifying, and no sprint race this week. I don't know when the next sprint race is, but we'll find that out. Really, really cool track this year. Or at Japan, Suzuka is just awesome. A definite driver's favorite. So we'll see how people show up and show out. Hopefully, Fernando Alonso finishes a race this time around. That would be nice to see.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to talk shit about Lance Stroll when Fernando Alonso was finishing races. And I'd like to go back to that, Fernando. So please do me a favor. just finish. Just finish one. Speaking of finishing, I think we're out, right?
Yeah.
This is it. Guys, there's going to be more of this. It's going to be better. And we want you to come along with us. You can check us out at the Half Serious, or just Half Serious. No, the Half Serious F1 on Instagram. I'm not sure if we'll have an X account at some point. I almost said Twitter.
Also, we're gonna have to lock that in on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
We probably should have did that before this.
We'll try out a few things, guys. If there's anything that you want to see from us that you don't think you're seeing yet, or you would like to, or if you have any interesting topics that you'd like us to go over, please feel free to submit them, direct message us. I'm sure we'll have an email at some point that we can give out to you guys. And if you're ever in San Antonio, get your butt over to Zito's. It's the best sandwich in town.
Best sandwich in town.
We love this place. We love F1, and we love you. So we'll see you next week.
Come take a bean shot with us.
Bean shots for everybody. All right.
All right, we're out. Peace.